modern bob cutting demo with Michaela. Go ahead, Michaela.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela. I am a pro educator for Amica, and I've been in the industry for about 20 years now. It's actually 20 years this year. I have been an educator with Amica for the past 4 years, and I'm coming to you live this morning from Nebraska. Let me adjust my. There we go. I'm coming to you live from Nebraska. It's noon here, so good morning, everyone tuning in. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day on your Monday today to get a little bit of education. So, a couple things about Amica that I wanted to talk about. We are a cruelty-free vegan brand. We're based out of Brooklyn. Like to say that we were Brooklyn born and salon raised because we've always been in support of stylists. I first discovered Amica in 2014 at the Chicago show, the ABS show. They had the most orangest, beautifulest, brightest booth that I'd ever seen. It was like a moth to a flame scenario, and I just like was drawn to it. And I think at the time the line had maybe like 10 or 11 products, and now they have 11 collections. A couple other really cool things about Amica is that we are B Corp certified. So if you're not familiar with what a B Corp certification is, it is essentially it's like a report card that we that we have to check all the boxes and get A's on. Essentially, we're held to higher standards of social, environmental performance, and transparency and accountability. So what that means is we have to treat our employees well, be transparent with our consumers and our shareholders, and also very important is we're a friend to the planet. Speaking of the word friend, Amica, the name means friend, and it means friend in the language Esperanto, which is a language that we don't use anymore. But I always thought that was kind of a fun fact that Amica means friend. One last thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the brand is that we have a superfruit star ingredient, and that is the sea buckthorn berry. The sea buckthorn berry is in every single one of our products, every single one of them. So I've got a little Amica display up here, but the sea buckthorn berry is in every single one of our products. It's actually a higher concentrated in our new Superfruit Star lightweight hair styling oil. But the sea buckthorn berry is a resilient little berry grown in the Himalayas, and it's an orange berry. It's actually where we get our Amica orange. It was inspired by this little berry because the berry is super bright orange. It has more vitamin A than a carrot, more vitamin C than an orange, has omega 3, 6, 9, and 7. Emphasis on 7 because 7 is really great for hair and skin. And so we've put it in every single one of our products. It's also organically and sustainably sourced from a farm in Tibet. So that's fun. I always want to know who from corporate had to make the trek to Tibet to find our sea berry farm to get our products from. But one thing I do want to say is there is a 30-second delay, I was told. So if you type in a question in the chat and I don't get it right away, it's because of that. But I also have a little screen here. I'll be able to answer questions. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I wanted to add a fun fact about myself. I'm coming to you, like I said, live from Nebraska. And I think one of the most Nebraska things I could say as a hairstylist was that my first haircut was done on a dairy cow. For my friend's farm. She was getting ready to show her dairy cows at the fair, and I was 16 in high school, and she called me over to her house to help her give a haircut to her cows. And that was also my first experience with purple shampoo as well, because if you didn't know, dairy cows are black and white. And we used the purple shampoo to brighten the white fur. So that was my first experience into the hair world, was cutting a dairy cow. So speaking of haircuts, we are going to talk about what we're going to do on this lovely model here. She is going to be getting what we call a modern bob. And we're calling it a modern bob because unlike your typical, I guess, like Sassoon bob, which is very technically cut and the hair is wet and everything is held out section by section and very precise, this cut's a little bit different because it allows for more movement. This cut was brought to us by Sal Salcedo. And Sal, if you don't follow Sal online, I think his Instagram is at Sal Hair. So at SAL hair. But Sal likes to look at his guests as like trees, if you will. So this haircut style is going to be approached from a more organic angle as opposed to a more like technical angle. And what I mean by thinking of your guest as like a tree is think of like the hair like branches. Sal talks about how he was laying under a tree one day looking up at the sky and you could see the sunlight come through the branches. You could see the airflow that kind of moved the branches through the trees. So this haircut is actually going to allow us to create air pockets within the hair to allow for movement and some body. One thing I like about this modern bob that we're going to do is it will be done dry. It will also, it can also be done on any texture or density, which is really nice. And I suppose on the texture or density, you could make certain modifications, which I'll talk about when we do this haircut. But like I said, it can be done dry. And the reason we do it dry is so that you can see every cut you make, you can see exactly how it's going to lay with the hair's texture. In this case, we prepped her. So I shampooed her with our Big Hit Volumizing Shampoo and Conditioner today. I love the Big Hit Volumizing Shampoo and Conditioner because it has a little bit of caffeine, has a little bit of glycerin. The caffeine is going to help wake up the strands, whereas the glycerin is still going to allow you to have a little bit of moisture because I have tried volumizing shampoos and conditioners in the past that were a little bit drying. And I have to say, this is like the only shampoo and conditioner that's remained in my shower, even at home, that I've like repurchased after I was out of it because I like it so much. So we did the Big Hit Volumizing Shampoo and Conditioner. She was also blow dried using the Superfruit Star Lightweight Hair Styling Oil. When I say lightweight, I can't express how lightweight this is. I have like 14 hairs on my head and I can put this in wet and dry. This also has up to 450-degree heat protection and it reduces breakage by 86%. So we love Miss Superfruit Star. And then I also used our Brooklyn Bombshell Blowout Spray, which you can mist just at the roots. You can mist all the way down the strand, all over. But another really cool thing about the Brooklyn Bombshell is that it also has 450-degree heat protection. A lot of our styling products do contain 450-degree heat protection, which is so nice because I think we all have that client that just cannot be trusted to use a heat protectant. So if we can get a product in their hands that we know that they're going to use every day that has heat protectant in it, why not? Why not try and get it into their hair? So let's see. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover about the haircut. Do we have any questions so far? If we have any questions, I have my little like iPad set up here, so I will be able to read questions if you have them. It's one of the reasons I have my glasses on because otherwise I wouldn't be able to see them. So let's just get started with this haircut. I'm gonna grab my shears. And the first part of this haircut, obviously, you would do a consultation with your client. It's very important to talk about, let's make sure she's, very important to talk about, obviously, length. How short do they want it? Because, you know, you don't want to take it too short. I always like to leave myself a little wiggle room sometimes within haircuts, especially if we're doing something that's going to be a drastic change, if we're taking more than like an inch or two off. Leaving a little wiggle room so we're not shocking them. I just err on the side of caution. That's just me. Not everybody has to be that way, but I am. So today she has told me maybe she has like some natural wave in her hair and she wants to bring it out. And that's one other great thing about this haircut is that if they do have any kind of texture in their hair, the texturizing we will add to the hair and like the cutting techniques that we'll use will help bring that texture out. So we are going to actually go probably like somewhere right in here with her length. We're going to start cutting our length in the front because I don't know about you, but sometimes I start a haircut in the back and then I get around to the front and for some reason, like I'm not taking as much off and it's not as short as the client wants. So to save time and to really make sure that your client can see exactly where it's going to be, we're just going to start in the front. We're not going to section this. In most cases, this perimeter can be cut without sectioning. So if for some reason your client has just like been blessed by the hair gods with gobs and gobs of hair and you have to section, go ahead. But this Miss Mannequin here was blessed with just medium amount of hair. So we're going to go in and I'm going to start at the front. And I hope that you guys can see okay. I'm going to try and angle this so that you guys can see here. We're going to go like mid-neck and we're just going to start. And I'm going to go all the way around my haircut. And we're cutting the perimeter here. It's a good idea to sort of try and be level with what you're cutting, but also don't break your back trying to do it. I mean, if you have to get on the ground and you're capable of getting on the ground, I suppose, if that's ever needed. But I am of the notion that if the client has to stand or anything like that, have them stand. You know, our bodies they go through so much in this industry. And so whatever you can do to preserve your muscles and your joints, do that. Now we're coming around this side here. This is the part where you're praying to the hair gods that you're like staying level with your haircut here. There we go. Sorry, I'm just reading comments here when I bend over like that. Finishing up the length. Again, occasionally when I come around to the other side, I leave myself a little wiggle room. Because if you end up cutting the other side shorter, then you have to go back and make your initial side shorter. Whereas now I can just work on bringing this up just a smidge without having to then reshorten the entire haircut if I make this shorter. So wiggle room is always good. I can always take more off, right? We can't put it back on. If I could put it back on, gosh, I would be a very wealthy stylist if I could fix everybody's hair. I'm gonna go lower her a little bit. Just a smidge. And we're gonna go in here. Okay. Our length has been established. This is the start of her bob. I do want to add that to prep her too, so the haircut that we're doing right now, I'd actually just done on her a longer version. So now we pretty much cut off all of the stuff that I did in the longer version, but I just wanted to add that. Okay. We've established our length. What we're going to do now is something that is going to help us remove a little bit of bulk because we've got our girl, but we don't have a lot of yes, it swings, but we want more movement. We want our branches to hit the sunlight and flow in the wind, right? Right now it's like a hedge that's been perfectly trimmed square, and we don't necessarily want that. We want an organic looking tree. Let's see, I'm gonna need my clippies. So this technique is actually really cool. And when I first saw Sal do it, I was like, absolutely not. There's no way that any of my clients are going to let me do this to them. But this technique is actually a great way to remove bulk. Now, this is the very back of her head. I'm back center here. And where her occipital bone is, I'm going to start there and go sort of down at a slight angle down to the ear. And I'm just going to clip this off. And I'm going to do that to the other side here. And then I'll show you. So with this technique, like I said, when I first saw Sal do it, I was like, there's not a single client that's going to let me do that to them. Because what this is going to do is going to help remove bulk from the back of the hair. Because we've run into a lot of clients, and I actually just had 2 of these last week that we did a haircut very similar to this on them. But they had a lot of bulk in the back, and not a lot of texturizing or even layering was kind of helping with removing that interior bulk. So this is the technique that I've been using on a lot of my clients. We're going to get this a little bit. So this technique can be done on any texture and any density. I want to emphasize that, like I said, even though I have 14 hairs on my head, it can be done. It's probably not as necessary for my hair, but on clients that do have quite a bit more hair, especially in this back area, because sometimes you cut a bob on someone and this sort of back area looks just like it's too full. So we've made a center back parting and a slight diagonal parting from the occipital bone down to the ear. You're not ever really going to want to take this section higher or much higher than the occipital bone just for blending purposes. Always occipital bone or lower. If they have a ton of hair, you could go like a hair, you could start your parting like a hair higher than the occipital bone, okay? Next step is we're going to take like a half moon sort of shaped parting, like so. All right. Here's going to be our little air pocket that's going to help airflow and movement. So I am actually going to take quite a bit of this off. We don't ever want to take more than 50% off of the length when we're doing this technique. Anywhere between like 50 and 30 would be our sweet spot. The other thing we want to remember when we are doing this technique, when I go to cut this off, I want to make sure I'm holding it at, I guess, what would be 180 degrees, because this would be 90 from the occipital about, right? We don't want to hold it anywhere lower than basically straight up, because we don't want graduation. We just want like a really soft, I guess, what would that be called? An increased layer? I don't know, square layer. We just don't want, obviously we know the more we elevate something, the more blended it will look. If I'm holding it out here and cutting it and then I drop it, we'll have a little bit of graduation, and we don't want that. So gonna hold it straight up, gonna take about 50% of the length. You can point cut this if you want to. You can cut it straight across. I suppose it depends on the texture and the density of their hair. I'm just gonna go in, just to see what I'm doing here. There we go. I'm gonna go in and point cut, holding straight up. Could probably go a little more. Okay, so I've cut my little section, and now I'm going to drop it. And that has given us just like a little bit of weight removal right in that kind of thickest section on a lot of our clients' hair. So, and you can do this on long hair too. You can do this on, I know that like when my hair is down and I look in the mirror, or when I'm looking at a client's hair and they have long hair, and you know, you kind of have to ask them to kind of like move it for your Instagram picture or something. Doing this technique will actually help add a little more like movement, because you don't have all this like long hair underneath here. I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions about what I've just done? Because I know it's kind of like, what client would ever let you do that on them? So I'll wait just a beat here while I am combing this out to see if anybody has any questions about that technique. Obviously, this is a great teaching moment to have a conversation with your client and let them know that you're going to be doing like a specialized sort of debulking technique in the back of their head that maybe they've never had before. But after doing it on a numerous amount of my clients, I really like the end result. It really helps take care of a lot of that bulk that like surface layering and stuff just necessarily doesn't. And we haven't put any layers in, but she just got a little movement now. So our next step here, I want to get a good profile on her. Like I said, please feel free to ask questions. I haven't quite had a class on a forum like this where I don't get to like interact. So bear with me on that. But just have to make sure I keep checking. But please feel free to ask questions. The next thing we're going to be doing is we are going to be adding some surface layering. We've got to get some movement up in here. And we're going to do that by taking about an inch section. One thing I also didn't mention while we're up here, we are working with this haircut from a center part. The center part is going to allow us to just have balance. Nature is balanced, so this haircut is going to be balanced. And if you have clients and you're trying to do this haircut, or if you're trying to convince them, if you just have a hard time convincing some clients to let you cut their hair parted in the center, I always say, I'm just going to cut parted in the center. It's for balance. And they never argue with that. So I have a couple clients that insist that I part it on the side when I cut, but the whole balance thing really kind of, they're like, oh, that makes sense. So we are going to approach this haircut from a center part. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier. We are taking our mohawk section on the top to start our sort of layering guide, taking it from the crown of the head all the way to the front. And we are going to do this. We're going to create an angle. Actually, you can see I've got length here and I've got some length down here. We want it slightly shorter in the back and longer in the front. So we're going to angle that. And you can do it depending on the client's hair and what we're going for. If you want a little more body in the back, you can angle it how you like. But right now, this is what we're going for. This is just going to help us create there we go. This is creating our sort of guide that we're going to do some surface layers or trim our branches, if you will. Next step is I'm going to be taking a sort of triangular parting from that crown section, and I'm going to go a little further down the front. We're angling it more because we are trying to preserve a lot of this down here. So I don't want to cut too far into this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to over direct everything back to center while we're doing this. And just what you're doing is just sort of cutting anything that's like left over on the bottom there. And I wonder if I turn her this way, maybe you can help me see her guide. So our guide is in there. So one thing that I learned about taking a haircut class from Sal Salcedo is that there's not a ton of like, there's a guide here and we're following the guide either. Because nature is not necessarily that way. And since Sal sees people like trees, you kind of just go based off of feeling. But again, we're not trying to cut into the perimeter of this haircut. So we're going to go just a little lower here, see if there's anything remaining, but I don't think there will be. Yeah, everything's kind of dropping out. So we've just got a little more movement on that top section there. We know generally with a bob, it's not a super layered type haircut. So we're keeping with that sort of foundation of what a bob is, but we are just making a few adjustments, just sort of bring it into the now. And some of these adjustments allow you to cut it dry, but also work with different textures as well, which is nice. Again, bringing everything I guess I could lower her too, couldn't I? I don't want to lower her too much. Oh, this haircut too is all about working smarter, not harder. We don't have a lot to trim here. Okay, bring it back up for you. There we go. Has anyone ever hit themselves in the face with their tripod once? Because I did once. Learned a good lesson. Okay, so again, we've just added some surface layers in there to kind of help give us a little body and some movement. How are we doing? Do we have any more questions, or do we have any questions that I can answer for you before we move on to the next step? I'm going to take a quick sip of my water. I hope everyone's having a good day. I think I was told you guys are in LA, maybe? Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Now we're going to move on to sort of the interior and the detailing. And again, this is all about creating more air pockets. I especially like this technique if someone has if they think they have wavy to sort of maybe slightly curly hair and they're not really sure how to bring out that texture or that movement. This is a really great technique to do within any of your haircuts to allow for that. One thing that I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot to was that I know maybe you might not do this entire haircut on somebody, but my hope is that you can take away a few of these little techniques and maybe use a few things here and there to kind of make your life a little bit easier if you hadn't already, done something like this. I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to take horizontal partings, and all the way up, we are going to, I guess, some people call it notch cutting or slide cutting or slicing, I guess. But we are going to take little sections starting from, you can do occipital a little bit lower. I'm just going to go in, and at different lengths and starting points, I'm going to just go in and sort of slide cut, okay? And this is how we create some of that interior texture within our haircut and movement. You can also take your section, kind of flip it over and do a little notch cutting moment this way. But we're going to do that throughout the entire haircut. So there's not so much layering on the outside as much as we're spending more time layering the interior. One thing I like about this particular method is that if you have a client, because I'm sure we all do, but I have a couple clients who are like, I love layers. I like the way that they make the hair move and I like the way they look, but I don't like to see them. And I'm like, okay. So some people have this, I don't know, I have a couple clients who are like, see, I see the layer. I see the layer. I don't like to see the layer. So this is a great way to give them some body and texture without them seeing the layers, if you will. Does anyone else have clients like that? They like the layers. They like the idea of layers, but then you give them layers and they don't they don't like to see what they look like on the outside. So this is a great little technique, and you can kind of switch it up and go in and create, your little air pockets. And then if your client sort of has like some natural movement, which she doesn't really, she doesn't have much of a natural wave, but I noticed that on clients that do have more of a natural wave, if you kind of add some texture and sort of, I call it money hands, you can kind of see that natural texture come out, which is cool as you're doing this. Again, going in, and sometimes I'm starting lower, sometimes I'm going up higher. It just kind of depends. I'm just sort of slide cutting through the hair. You can go in. See, we're just adding, as you can see now, we've just got a little more, there's more texture and there's more movement. Let's see if she can, she's got a little more movement there now. More air pockets, more airflow. You're actually going to do this technique all the way up the head. The only place we're not going to do it is we're going to like take like a small like veil on the very top layer, and we're not going to do it on there. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure you guys can see. I don't want my puffy sleeves to cover up what I'm doing here. But I know we took that big section out a little bit earlier, but it's not that noticeable, which is the idea. I can feel that there's not as much bulk back here. It feels more airy, but I can't see that I've taken a chunk out, essentially, if you will, because there's quite a bit of hair on the floor here. Lower her down a little bit for me because, you know, work smarter, not harder. I think we'll flip this up this way. Flip it over. This section feels a little heavy and long to me, so I'm just going to go in kind of deep and just slide cut, notch cut, slither, slice, whatever you call it. I'm sure TikTok has a name for it too. And again, depending on the client's density and texture, you might find yourself needing to do a little bit more than I'm doing currently, or you might find, like, again, with myself, I have 8 hairs on my head, so you probably wouldn't need to do quite as much of this. And maybe not quite as high either, so it just depends. That's what we as professionals are paid to determine what's best if our clients do what's best. There we go. Just adding a little more movement in there. So I've kind of gone to the top section. I don't want to go any further because, of course, we want like a little bit of an overlay. We're going to start on this side. Here's her. And I actually leave out the very, very bottom layer. I don't want to create any like holes or air pockets there. But we're just going to go in. Let's see. You can also obviously do a fringe with this bob if you wanted to. I've also used this technique on clients when their hair agreed with it with a razor. So you can go in and sort of like, what is my razor? I don't have it handy, but you can even go in with your razor if this were a razor and just kind of notch out bits there. But I really do like this technique. Like I said, I remember when I first, when Sal first introduced this cut to the Amika Pro team, I was like, oh gosh, will I ever like do this kind of stuff on client? I don't know. And it turns out I use these techniques really often, really often. And I don't do all techniques in one haircut, but I do find myself doing at least one of them in most of my haircuts. Gosh, that sound the hair makes when you're the mannequin hair. So lovely. We're gonna go in actually on this top. I want to go a little further in. Excuse me. A little further in and just do some more notch cutting. While I am doing this, actually, I did want to chat quickly about the fact that Amika has a pro community app now. And you can just actually search for it in the App Store. But it's actually a really cool little app. And I think right now, maybe, I think today is an Amika 101 day. Potentially, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure there's an Amika 101 class. And they do a lot of live classes. It's essentially an app for all things Amika. It feels like a social media app, but it's like for professional hairstylists about Amika. They have exclusive, like announcements, like you heard it first here kind of stuff. You can also get opportunities for to test products, which is really cool. They'll post something saying like, oh, we need a few testers for a new cool product or whatever. So that's really nice. It's also just a great way to connect with other stylists who also love Amika, and everybody on there is so sweet and nice and encouraging. So if you haven't already, check out the Amika Pro Community app. I think in the App Store, it's like a little orange box and it has the white A with the colon if you're having a hard time finding it. But I love the app. The cool thing also about the app is that all of us pro educators kind of are also on there, and we all take turns answering questions. So you kind of get answers straight from the source. If you have questions about what a product does, you can also get certified on the app for free for our new pro smooth over treatment. It's an in-salon smoothing treatment that is keratin and formaldehyde free. So there's informational videos about that on there. And like I said, it's great. There's everything from there's different little forums for salon business and tips and tricks, and it's a really fun, cute place to be. So be sure to download the app if you're interested in learning more things about Amika. The cool thing too is that if you're really active on the app, they actually reward you by sending you gifts. So there's like a top 25 tier, and then there's like a top 100 tier every few months. So the more active you are on the app, you get noticed by getting a cute gift. I think the last gift everyone was sent out was the new Amika Aura hair and body mist, which is amazing. I'm so glad they brought it back because I have the privilege of working the sales floor at booths at the trade shows, and it's the first and highest asked question about when we were getting our perfume back. So I'm so glad now I don't have to disappoint everyone and tell everyone that we don't have one right now. So, okay, so I have just completed our interior texturizing, or I guess creating our air pockets, if you will. We are going to do one last cutting technique, and this is more detailing, I guess, the sort of perimeter. And I'm hoping you'll be able to see this, but again, when I took this class initially, when Sal presented this class to all of the pro educators, I hadn't even noticed that this was a problem because I guess maybe I don't pay that much attention to detail, but Sal Salcedo does. And he said it always bothered him when someone would you could tilt their head back and then they lean it forward and this bit right here. So tilt back and then lean forward. There's just see that? See how this bit is just sticking out? Do you see that? I never noticed I hated that until Sal pointed it out, and now I can't unsee it on the haircut. So the innovator that Sal is, he came up with a technique to sort of soften this, because remember, this is a bob. The whole idea is having like a blunt perimeter for this particular haircut. So we don't want to create like, we don't want to graduate this, but we do want to like sort of soften this so that it doesn't do that. So this little technique, if I can, okay. This little technique, I'm gonna grab my clippies because I'm gonna want, we're gonna basically take vertical partings all around the head, and we're gonna be working in this area of the head. I'm just gonna clip this section, this side out of my way. Okay, so we're taking a vertical parting, and now I have to kind of like, okay. You're actually gonna see, maybe, can you see our little air pocket we created? Maybe if I move my black shirt in between. And you can, there's our little air pocket that we created right there. So that was what we created earlier. Now, I don't want you to mistake that for like, we don't want to cut too much of our perimeter again, but we've got like this right here, this little bit. I'm going to pull this up. Maybe I'll lower her because if you can see better against my black shoulder here. Okay. We are actually not going to cut this off. We don't want to cut this corner off or this ledge, but I do want to round it off and soften it. So that's what we're going to do. We are actually just going to point cut and sort of, see how I just sort of rounded that off a little bit? We don't want to fully cut that off because that is part of our perimeter, and we don't want to graduate our perimeter. That's not the look we're going for. But I did just want to round it off a little bit. And that's essentially what I'm going to be doing as I'm working around the head here. So I'm going to, and the idea is you want to pull it down at a 45-degree angle, find that perimeter or that ledge, and then pull it up. We've got this like little triangular, there we go, little triangular area. We're just rounding that off. Normally I wouldn't rest my arm so hard on my client, but she's a mannequin, so. We're doing that all the way around the head. And you might find that after you do it, you might have to go back and just do a little bit more or go in a little bit deeper. But I'm not cutting it off. I'm just point cutting and sort of rounding it off. See, there it is, right there. There we go. See, already you can kind of see that just a little more movement there. It's not so stiff, if you will. As we get around to sort of behind the ear area, I do like to over direct back slightly just so that I don't accidentally create any little holes down here. Here's my little corner. I'm going to recomb that so it's not so bunched up together. Again, not cutting it off, just softening. It was a triangle and now it's like a little semicircle, right? There we go, our little corner. And again, just rounding this off. If you've never noticed this area of a haircut before, maybe next time just like ask your client while they're in the chair, ask them to sort of, tilt their head back like this and then sit forward. And then you'll kind of see what, and you won't notice it in every hair type or texture, obviously, but when you do notice it, you won't be able to unsee it. But now you have a solution for it. If it bothered you, you know, it didn't bother me before, but now it does. Now that I know it's there, it bothered me. We're going to, again, coming around to the sides here. There we are again. Sometimes there we go. Sometimes I let that bit drop out. And again, right here, we're just rounding it off. Remember, if we cut this off, we're going to create a little bit of graduation in the perimeter, and we don't want that. And I'm going to just really softly do it around the front. I don't want to just clipped there. So there we go. There's our one side. She's got a little more movement than she had before. A little more air pockets, a little more air flow. Our branches can sway in the wind now, right? I'm going to go through, I'm going to finish this side. And then I'll just show you a couple different ways that we style this. There's two methods that I'll show you. Make sure my tools are on really quick. There we go. And there. Okay. Tools are on. We're going here. We are holding it up. That little right there. And I never would have thought of doing something like that. Just rounding it off a little bit. Stand this way in front of her. All right, so essentially, this is our finished haircut without any styling here. But I'm going to actually go in and show you how you can style this to make it, give it more of a modern feel, if you will. I am going to go in here with some of the Shield anti-humidity spray. This will help lock out humidity for up to 24 hours. It will also provide 450-degree heat protection. Kind of beautiful mist. So this is also part of our smoothing line. We have a couple new smoothing products. We've got our Forget Frizz shampoo and conditioner. And then we have our new, it's like a leave-in 2-in-1 treatment. It's Frizz Me Not leave-in treatment that is heat activated. But again, this is just our heat protectant slash anti-humidity spray. Just gonna go in and mist. And then I'm gonna brush that through my cute little Amika brush. We're just gonna put a bend in the hair. We're not gonna do anything too wild. Different directions is what we're gonna wanna do. Don't wanna do everything in the same direction because our tree branches don't grow in the same direction, right? I do like to curl away from the face, that first section. So we'll just go in. And we're not trying to, like I said, we're not trying to do too much here. We just want a little bit of a bump. Just a little bit of a bump. The next section, I might do towards the face. And you can also do two sections or two both directions in one section as well. So you can go away from the face here and then sort of back toward the face here. We're just creating just a little bit of movement. I'm going to smooth the ends out of this one just a little more, leaving the ends a little bit smoother. I'm going to go toward the face on this one a little bit. We'll go away from the face on this one. It's just about adding a movement, a little bump, if you will. And you can either, depending on the look you're going for, you can either smooth it out right away while it's still warm, or if you want the curl to stay in a little bit longer, you know, and have a little more pronounced curl, then let it cool down a little bit. In this instance, I just want a little movement. I don't want a ton. I think that's what makes this sort of like look more modern and cool, is that you're not doing too much, if you will. We don't need to do too much with this one. And then I'll show you my other favorite technique. I really like this one. Let's see. I'm gonna grab my flat iron. I'm trying to get an angle where you can see me. Okay. This technique, I'm gonna stand right here. I think will be good. This one's kind of fun. We're gonna kind of sort of heat up our section into like a S-wave formation. So I want the first part of our S to go towards the face like so. I've got 370. We don't need it terribly hot, but I'm actually just going to press that shape into the hair. And then I'm going to come down here and just kind of sort of keep feeding it in like so. Very cute. I love this. This is probably my favorite technique in styling this particular haircut, because it literally just does, you could just put a little bend in it if you want. It's sort of effortless looking. Let's see, we're going to go toward the face again for this part. Again, we're just sort of feeding it in there. I hope you all can see that. Just tappy tap, tap it in. This one I do like to let cool fully before I kind of run my fingers through it, because if you do it too hot, you might take out your beautiful work. So I'm going to go, and again, different directions. I'm going to go this one. I'm going to start with my C sort of curving to the back, if you will. And I'm going to heat it up in there. And of course, don't hold your flat iron there for too long, because you will get a little seam like we just did. Learn from my mistakes. And then just let that kind of dry. What am I talking about? Cool. Cool it out. Let it cool. Let's see. Back. You might have to clip up a little bit. Like I said, I think this is one of my favorite techniques in styling this sort of like adding a wave to a bob. Last section here, maybe. Just sort of feeding that in sort of an S formation into my flat iron. And of course, the like more squiggly your S is, the more pronounced your wave will be. So you can really push it in there or not. It's totally up to you and the look you're going for. Another great thing about this particular haircut and putting all this texture is I know hand styling is kind of like a popular thing that I've seen lately. And so all of this texture within this haircut allows for some really cool hand styling as well. So that's really nice. Adding all that texture just really helps assisting in that. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Rising Star Volumizing Finishing Spray. This stuff is like witchcraft. I don't know what. It's fantastic. It is just a volumizing finishing spray, but it doesn't feel like your typical finishing spray. Like it doesn't feel like hairspray, but it is a finishing spray. So you can go in and spray this, shake it like it owes you money, and then spray it at the roots for a little immediate zhuzh. Again, this is a finishing spray. The cool thing about this product though is it does also have 450-degree heat protection. So I have played around with using it as like a working spray as well. I just want to brush this a little bit more because there we go. There's always one here on these mannequin heads. There's always one. Okay, there. Yeah, I just wanted this little bump. This hair can just wanted a little bump. Something very, very modern, if you will. I'll do the same thing to the other side, except I won't do the roots. I'll just kind of do it everywhere. Both very cute, both sides. One a little more effortless, maybe one a little more flirty. That's another thing you can ask your clients during the consultation, especially for the styling part, like at the end, like, how do you want to feel today? Do you want to leave feeling bold? Do you want to look flirty? Do you want to feel like a boss? Whatever. And that will kind of help determine what it's going to look like when they leave. But this is our finished modern bob. So just a quick little review of everything. We cut the perimeter starting in the front, and we went all the way around. The next thing we did was we took that center parting in the back and we took out our big chunky bulky moment there. And then we did our layering. We took our mohawk section by just an inch wide. We layered it so it was slightly shorter in the back, longer in the front. And then we continued to take a diagonal forward parting up until there was nothing left to cut. We point cut that. And then we went in and we did our horizontal partings with our interior texture where we sort of slide cut or notch cut everything out. And then the final step was that removing that little ledge that we had there to kind of soften this without graduating it. And then we just styled her very cute. Again, my name is Michaela. I'm a pro educator for Amika. I did just want to hold this up because I'm technologically challenged, but if anyone would like to scan this QR code, it's basically a survey that tells Amika how I did today. So I'm just going to hold it there for like a few seconds to see if anyone's interested in taking the survey. This is just a great way for them to know if I'm doing a good job out in the field. And I would love to hear feedback on it. So they do share that with us. So hopefully this works, me holding it like this. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday to be here with me and to get some education. Education is so important. So anyways, have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.